Like Marty said, we're going to be talking about education, innovation, and progress in the workplace. But as usual, Bill Mooney in his first session of the day really tried to steal my thunder and tell you guys about what we've been doing internally for education. But that's okay, because I'm actually going to retroactively steal some of his material from his presentation 2 years ago called Speaking Millennial. I know a couple of you were there, but I don't expect you to remember it verbatim. He talked about how I was actually the guinea pig for Synergex when they were trying to start new hiring and onboarding practices. But what he talked about was kind of all the fun stuff we did, and how I got like a cool t-shirt when I started and a Starbucks gift card. But our onboarding process is actually a lot more than that. It's about figuring out how new people fit into your organization and showing them what they're going to be doing there, and it involves education. So that's one of the topics we'll cover today. So his presentation is very, very relevant to mine, because one of the reasons education is so important in the workplace today is because millennials are kind of taking over. We have become the biggest demographic chunk in the workplace. This graph is obviously from US labor force in 2017, but it's a trend that's across the globe. And also even Gen Z is sneaking up on us. I actually practiced this presentation with 2 people, and I thought both of them would really relate to it, and then I realized later the other person in the room was actually Gen Z. So her take on it was even a little bit different than mine, because surprise, surprise, people are different and they have different needs. But one trait of millennials is that we really think that education should be available to us in the workplace. And we don't want to work somewhere that doesn't offer that. In fact, I was talking to Philip Bratt, who's in the audience over there, after he practiced his presentation last week, and he was like, that's so true. My first computer science professor told me that when I'm interviewing, I should ask the people I interview with, what kind of education do you provide? And luckily for all of us, when he asked Beth, who's now manager at Synergex, what Synergex does, she had a really great answer, because Synergex does value education in the workplace. So that's not the only reason why education is important. And so for this next reason, we're going to take a little bit of a walk down memory lane. Who here remembers the first album, 8-track, tape, CD that they ever had? A couple of you. Maybe you remember kind of what you had. Well, the first thing I remember having was the Lion King sing-along cassette tape. And I'm embarrassed to say, when I was trying to find an image of this, I couldn't remember what it was called. I just knew it was called a tape, and cassette came to me later. As soon as I saw this, I remember getting like a pencil out and like having to wind the ribbon back in if it came out. And I felt really bad realizing that it was the sing-along version of the tape I had, and not just the regular soundtrack, because my parents definitely had to listen to me sing this every day on the way to and from school for several years. And then, not so luckily for them, a couple years later, my first CD was the Spin Doctors, which they're a 2-hit wonder. So if you haven't heard of them, you probably know those 2 songs. Clearly had great taste in music. When I told my mom I was going to put this CD up there, she argued with me, because she claims that I technically stole her Alanis Morissette CD before they ever gave me this one. So she thinks that that should count as my first CD. But luckily for them, with CDs came Walkmans, so I wasn't playing everything out loud. And then came MP3 players. And this is a mini disc player, for those of you that don't know. They did not last very long, but I was told this was going to be the wave of the future, and that everyone needed one of these. And I spent hours ripping all of the music off of all of my CDs and putting it onto these mini discs. And I'm pretty sure as soon as I got my entire collection onto a disc, everyone was already moving on to iPods. So at least it's still an MP3 player. This is actually not even the first generation of iPod, it's probably like the 3rd, but they've been through so many iterations, from shuffles to video to really now, the iPhone. That's where some people keep their music. And that's where I do keep my music, except for I stream it on Spotify. And the point I'm trying to make here, if it's not clear, is that technology is changing so rapidly. And if you're trying to hire someone that knew how to put music on a cassette tape, they're probably not going to know how to do music streaming, and you need to keep their skills up to date so they can keep moving forward. I mean, today, I get updates every 2 weeks for like my Spotify app on my phone. And things are just moving really rapidly, and if you aren't investing in education in your workplace, your staff is going to get left behind. And another reason why we're talking about this one's a crowd participation as well. Please raise your hand if you've ever had a job. Hopefully everyone is raising their hand, otherwise, and keep them up there. Now keep your hand raised if you've ever been really good at a job. Hopefully everyone's still up there. Okay, now if you've been so good at a job that you've been promoted to a management position, keep your hand up. Okay, now keep your hand up if you've been in that management position and it required the exact same skill set as your previous job. Okay, there's no one with their hands left up. I'd hazard a guess that when you get promoted into a management position, it's going to require a lot of soft skills that maybe you didn't need before. The world seems to agree with me. What we've got up here is a survey from LinkedIn. It was their 2018 Workplace Learning Report. They interviewed about 3,000 people, and they asked the question, what's the most important skill for an employee to learn? The top 3 skills that talent developers, which are often HR, possibly someone like me, managers and executives, that they needed to teach their employees were leadership, communication, and collaboration. And then after that came role-specific skills. You can actually teach these things, so you can help people learn them. They're really important in a lot of positions, especially as people start to rise in an organization. And so now we've got millennials, we've got rapidly changing technology, and we've got an issue where you need to be teaching soft skills in the workplace. So pretty important reasons why this matters. But if that's not enough, we've also got some benefits of what I like to call at Synergex, like our culture of learning. Kind of sounds a little hippie-ish, but I like it. So if you're kind of thinking from the company perspective, you can get increased productivity, because if you're training your employees how to do something better, hopefully they will be better and they'll be able to do things faster and you'll be able to get more done. It's kind of where that progress part of the presentation comes in. Next thing is, as we talked about, lots of people care about education in the workplace, so if you're actually giving them these opportunities, you're less likely to lose them. But what I think is even more important than losing someone is keeping employees that are actually engaged. Because I just can't imagine a place where you have tons of loyal employees, but they don't care. They're there, but they're not really there. So creating a culture of learning can help you combat that, and you'll have those long-time employees that are excited to be there. Also, to help combat the issue where technology is evolving, if you're continuing to provide education, we're going to decrease that skills gap. And finally, what I mean by enhanced company reputation is really this is how you're competitive with your hiring. Your new millennial employees are going to tell all their friends, oh, this is a really great place to work, or you can put on your website, like what if you have professional development opportunities and things like that. But if you're wondering, what about me, the individual? We've also got job satisfaction up here. In that same LinkedIn report, it said that 94% of employees would stay at their company longer if the company invested in their career. So if you're the company and giving these employees the opportunity, hopefully they're in that 94% and they're now satisfied with their job. If there's room to move up at your organization, keeping up with your skills and learning new things at work, that means you might be able to make some upward mobility. And who doesn't just feel better when they know how to do things the right way? It's going to increase your confidence. And finally, kind of tying in with that increased productivity on the company side, if you yourself are better at your job and getting more done, that's going to create more time for you to work on more creative or innovative projects, which in turn also is better for the company. And now that we've talked about why it's so great, if you wanted to say, like, oh, I want to start a program like this tomorrow, you might run into some challenges. These are a couple of things that some of them I have run into personally, and others just common things I've read from other talent developer type people. We've got our Joda developer characters up here. You may or may not be familiar with them. We write comics about them sometimes. They represent a couple of the challenges. So the number one thing I hear from people about why they didn't go to some sort of educational event, and remember, they want to go to these. I just talked about how 94% of people want to stay at a company that's going to invest in them. They still reply, I don't have time. and they don't go to the events. And that's really tough to deal with when you're trying to start a program like this. So of course it helps if you're the person putting on the program and you've got some friends at work, they're probably going to show up. But everyone else, you have to try and create opportunities to meet them where they're at, and also get their managers involved, because when their managers are telling them this is important, obviously then they're going to make time for it. So then if you've got the manager, like manager here, saying, well, we've got other stuff to do, education's not important right now, we'll do it somewhere else, there's some other time. That kind of just compounds on the I don't have time issue from your employees. So for that, obviously managers are busy, everyone's busy. So that's where someone like me, it's like my job to be handing them, well, here's some great opportunities for you that you can give to your employees. So they don't have to do too much of the work. But it really does start from the top in this scenario, and you have to get your executives and your managers on board so they're supportive of the program. Well, what if you don't have the money for a program? That's okay. Most of the things that I do at Synergex don't cost us anything. And you'd be surprised about how many things you can do, just everyday experiences that your employees can learn from. And we'll talk about a couple of those today. What's the ROI? This is something we're talking about so much at Synergex. We're measuring everything. And so this is kind of a problem for me personally. How do I describe to people that what I'm doing is important for the company? And the ideal goal is that one day we'll be able to measure attrition, like are less employees leaving because they're happy with programs like this. But for now, I do lots of other things, like use that Net Promoter Score that you saw this morning, ask people how they're feeling about the opportunities I provide. And I also take an informal attendance of every event I put together. I don't call people's names, I just make note of who's come to get a count. So I know what things seem to be working well and what things aren't. And this final guy, Mark Edding, he doesn't even know the programs exist. Customer awareness could be a huge problem for your educational programs. Not everyone reads their email, not everyone, you need to figure out how to get the information out there to your employees about the program. And I'll talk a little bit later about some creative marketing campaigns I did internally for one of our big events. So at Synergex, we do a lot of things. We're going to talk about all of these today, but I thought it would be boring for me to describe everyone in detail. So what we did was we interviewed a couple of employees that are not here today, so you can see some new faces, and asked them about the programs. It was not scripted. They said these things all on their own, and it was really good, I think, for me to hear that some things are working, and they were also able to talk about some of the programs that I'm a little bit less involved in, because I'm definitely not responsible for all of these things, but we're going to talk about all of them.
Well, there are lots of educational opportunities available through Synergex. We have the Lunch and Learns.
A Lunch and Learn is an opportunity for people to eat their lunch and learn something at the same time in the basic concept. Usually it's around a different topic that someone might know a little bit about.
So I did a Lunch and Learn on passwords and password management. For me personally, I enjoy teaching and sharing information that I know that I think other people are going to take advantage of.
So when we hire a new employee on their first day, actually before they start, I set up a 30 and a 60 and a 90-day plan.
So right away I had some tasks to accomplish, one of which included our Synergex 101 event.
I did the Synergex 101 with Bill Mooney, and it was kind of enlightening, and because of how open he is with what goes on in the company and how it started and its financial aspects, I guess, because I don't think a lot of companies like to share that with their employees, even though I think it's pretty important.
Management has gotten involved in making sure that everybody gets some opportunities for education, and so we actually put on everyone's goals for the year that they do some sort of learning opportunity, either via webinar, either a course on Pluralsight.
Pluralsight is a website with a wide variety of tech-related videos where you can learn about new technologies or new frameworks or new techniques on how to code. So it's a very useful website if you really want to learn new languages. You want to learn JavaScript or something. There's probably videos for that. So
I guess it's more of like a mutual trust more than anything. They trust that I will be able to teach myself and be able to learn how to use these new technologies. So I've just been...
So actually, both the employees and the company benefit by having all these educational opportunities. The employees get to learn new skills, and then the company benefits from their new knowledge and helps them to work on their jobs better.
So, I don't know, we've been having a lot of fun with videos lately, so I wanted to share a little bit more about how our employees feel about all of these things, but we will go into them a little bit deeper than that. We're going to start from onboarding, which is important from day one. So like I mentioned earlier, I came on board at Synergex right after they had sort of altered their onboarding program, so I may actually be one of the first people that got one of these 90-day plans. I came into work on my first day, got all my cool t-shirts and stuff, and did all the HR paperwork, and probably about midday I met with my boss, and she had worked out this whole plan of my goals for the first 90 days that I was going to be working there, which felt great because at my previous job I showed up, there was no computer, I sat there for an hour I think before anyone talked to me, and then I think a week into my job I finally had to schedule a meeting with my manager and asked what am I supposed to be doing because he never bothered to talk to me about it. So this really sets the tone of you're going to have things to do, we're going to support you, you know exactly what you're supposed to be doing. So it feels good if nothing else. The plans are broken into 30-day chunks, and really the goal of the first 30 days is learn things. Second set of 30 days, 31 to 60 days, is more about collaborating. So working on a project with someone else in the organization. And the last set of 30 days, 61 to 90, is about actually doing things on your own. So then when you're on day 91, you are on your own. I mean, not completely, we're all still there in the office, but you can be trusted to do a lot of projects on your own. You're set up and you know who you need to work with and all of that. Some of the things that we do in that learning period are a company training. We call ours Synergex 101, and you heard a little bit about it in the video. This is something that predates the new onboarding program. It's something Synergex has done for a long time, and something I've always been really, really impressed by. And if there's one thing you take away from this presentation, if you aren't training your new employees about what your company does, who your customers are, what your products are in that first week that they're there, change that and start teaching them those things. Even your HR manager should know what your company does. If they don't feel connected, and they go home and they tell their family, I work at some tech company, I don't know what we do. Those types of people probably aren't going to stay with your organization very long if they don't even know what you do. So really try and invest in that. We'll also do product training that's applicable to whatever the person's position is. So for our QA engineers, they actually go to the same Language Essentials class that many of you have probably taken, the Synergy DBL Language Essentials. And for someone like Rachel Gibson, who just started a couple months ago in our sales department, she needs to know how to best serve her clients. And Visual Studio, traditional Synergy and Visual Studio is something we've been talking about a lot. So I gave her the layman's version of this is what Visual Studio is. Someone else does the technical Visual Studio training, not me, but it's important to be able to train people on what these products are so they can at least talk about it to you guys. So process documents are kind of the less fun thing, but they're what we just do throughout our day. If you're working on a new process, you write it down, so that way, if you're passing off the job to someone else in the future, a new person comes on, they can just read the document and know how to do it. It's great for when you go out on vacation too, so people aren't bugging you. But they're a good thing to give people in that first 30 days so they can figure out how things work. Informational meetings can go in either the learning or the collaborate section. That's more someone is going to be working with a person in another department. Just set them up to talk for 30 minutes. They can figure out what the other person's job is like, so they know what the other person's going to expect from them. These are really easy, free things. Remember I said some of them will be free. And I also wrote job aids up here. This can include any number of things, but the hot topic at Synergex lately has been cheat sheets. And we actually have a Synergy DBL cheat sheet now that I've been sending out in our new developer onboarding boxes to new Synergy developers. Internally, some of our other job aids are, well, we use YouTube a lot. And YouTube is great because you don't need to own a video to put it on your playlist. And so we put a lot of our own videos on onboarding playlists for our employees, but I also have plenty of playlists that we use for education that I've just taken, some of Microsoft's videos or some other videos from experts and put them on this playlist and handed it out to employees so that they have the videos that they need to watch. You can kind of see up here, I actually used previous conference videos. There's some of you here that actually did this one, the turnkey demo from 2 years ago. We do show these to our employees so they, again, know what our customers are doing and feel connected to the company. So videos are a great way to do that. This is also something I'm willing to do for you guys. Like I said, you can just steal our videos and put them on a playlist, but also if you want some direction for what you should be showing to your new employees, I'm happy to curate one for an individual or for just your entire onboarding process. Just-in-time or ongoing job-specific training. What I mean by just-in-time is like something just broke and now you need to figure out how to fix it. Then you go get training. That's just-in-time training. Or maybe hopefully right before it breaks is the just-in-time part. But you guys are actually doing some of this ongoing job-specific training right now. Going to industry conferences is one of our examples internally. We send a lot of people to Microsoft Build and VMS conferences, things like that. And all of you guys are already attending an industry conference, so that's great. But we also will do new product trainings internally, again, so that we can all speak to you about the new products when they come out. We already did internally one about our new Rev 11 licensing, so that when it launches with version 11, all of us will be prepared. So customer service team and sales and the support team, we've all been through the training already. So it's good to do that and communicate instead of launching something, having a support call come in and going, oh yeah, I should learn about that. But this can also be really informal, just joining a coding community. For you guys, that means the Synergex resource community, just looking around on Stack Overflow, Googling, going to YouTube. All of these are pretty casual places to do the ongoing training. It doesn't have to be anything like super fancy. But like I said, just getting an expert in the office to teach a group of people about something new that's coming out in your organization, that's a great way to get some training. Professional development is an area where it sits in our HR department basically, but I've been a recipient of Synergex's generous policy about professional development. You heard a little bit in the video from one of our managers that they set up goals with all of their employees for the year, for what they want to do. And so that definitely includes what professionally you want to do to make your skills better. And this is really preparing for the future. So you're not doing, professional development isn't like, I need this for my job right now. It's, I might need this for my job that I want in the future. So it's definitely growth. But it's really important to set clear expectations about if you're the manager, what you expect the employee to be doing, what's available to them. And if you're the employee, definitely speaking up and having that conversation with your manager about what you need and where you want to go. For me, I actually last year took a class on public speaking. It was a double-edged sword because then I had to speak at the conference. But it was really good because if I hadn't taken it, I probably wouldn't have been able to get up here at all. So it's really nice to have that opportunity. Now, Lunch and Learns is something that I've actually implemented since I've been at Synergex, and they have been a roller coaster figuring out what the right formula is for them. But the idea behind it, as you heard in the video, it's pretty simple. Everyone gets together with their lunch and we'll watch a video or bring in a speaker or have an internal expert talk on something. But what's really key here that I've discovered is that lunchtime is people's free time and we're not paying them, so it has to be a fun topic, not necessarily fun, but not something they need for their job. So like I said, not role specific. Some examples we've done lately, our wellness coordinator, Samantha, does one about once a quarter on some sort of health topic. She recently did one on sleep and how to maximize your sleep and what's the appropriate amount to get every night. The image we have up here is from her supermarket savvy class, where she taught us about different ways that when you go to the grocery store, how things are labeled and how things will say gluten-free, and so you'll buy them except for that product is always gluten-free, and they're trying to just trick you so that one looks better, and that sort of thing. It was really fun. You also saw in the video that one person that was really passionate about teaching his fellow employees did a class on passwords, and he's also done one on Google accounts. And so these are all things that we don't really need for work, but like with the sleep class, that really helps you in your life, which then makes you more productive at work. So it all kinds of ties into this culture of learning and building like this holistic approach to making your employees happy and productive at work. Oh, and for this one, you'd be surprised at how many people are willing to come talk to you for free. We have an investment manager that manages our 401k, and she was like, how often can I come in and talk to you? And she's already done one about retirement savings, and we might get her in to come and talk about refinancing your home or paying down your student loan debt. There's a million topics that people want to hear already. So again, another really great free option. Who here has heard of a hackathon before? Okay, quite a few of you. Who here has participated in a hackathon before? Mostly Synergex people and a couple others. Okay, so a hackathon, in my view, is a set period of time where groups of people get together and they work on a project. And so for us, the set period of time was one work day, although we had a couple of other random periods of time where people could brainstorm or form teams and things like that. And it was open to everyone. Often people think hackathons are just technical, but first of all, if you have a technical project, it's really advantageous to get non-technical people on your team to help market it and things like that. But also there's so many different sorts of hacks. Like I described it as like kind of like life hacks. People always talk about life hacks nowadays, or at least millennials do. Anything could really be a hackathon project. So it's open to everyone, and we ended up, at the end of the day, having 7 teams that developed 7 prototyped ideas. And the goal is just, you work fast. You have one day, so you're not making anything too pretty or too complete. You kind of fake it if you have to. But you work together and you get the job done. And we ended up having 55% of the company participate on a team, which blew my goal of 40% out of the water. So it was pretty exciting in our first year, especially since I had never been to a hackathon. It was really something that a couple of the developers in the company had been saying for years they wanted one, and I kind of just ended up being the champion of it. So 55% was huge. And up here you'll see it also says reached 82% of the company. And I say that because we had like a vote at the end of the day on like which projects people liked the most. And also one of the teams put together a survey for their project. So people not involved on an actual hackathon team ended up coming in to vote or filling out the survey. And that made up 82% of the company, and I think like 10% were on vacation that day, so pretty good number. And I said earlier I'd talk about creative ways that I've marketed programs, and this flyer is one of them. I thought that kind of going like guerrilla marketing tactics would be better for this event. So I printed maybe like 13 of these, and they're bright pink, and you can't really see that in this picture. And all of the tabs say different versions of yes. And I put them up in the bathrooms, which some people didn't appreciate, and in the kitchen, and anywhere I thought people might look so that they couldn't like not see it. Like, it's okay if you don't read your email, you're gonna see my flyer. And it didn't say anything in it except for that we're having a hackathon. So people were like, what is this? So I followed it up, of course, with an email explaining what a hackathon was and what ours was gonna be like. Oh, and first I sent one to just the managers to get them on board, which I think was a good move, to get them their feedback first. So I think this is definitely like a communication win for educational events. Like I said, I could talk about this forever, but I think like with the video I just showed, it's more important for you guys to hear from someone that actually participated. And luckily for all of us, this is actually a picture of most of the first place winning team that we had. And almost everyone on that team is here today. So I'm going to invite the team leader of our first place team up to speak to you guys. And his name is Matthew Reyes. So if you give him a quick round of applause.
Okay, so my name is Matthew, and today I'm here to tell you about my hackathon experience. and mainly about, kind of like what the return on investment was, to use a buzzword, for Synergex hackathon. And so the first thing that most people expect is, what kind of projects did you get? So I'm going to mention off some of the top projects we had today, which were, we had a prototype for a new internal company website, which should facilitate better collaboration and communication across our company. We had a new database connectivity string utility that our support team primarily worked on, and they're going to try and use that, and I think that they have been using it a bit internally to help with some support cases. And then we had the winning team, which was a room booking app. You see a screenshot up here. That was part of my team, and we use that, or we're currently developing that to help manage meeting room conflicts. For the times that you just need a meeting room really fast and you don't want to open up Outlook, so you can book it with your phone using NFC. But one of the things that I really didn't think about whenever I walked into the hackathon was the talent discovery aspect. I'd been to hackathons in the past, and this was my first hackathon with my own company. So that was something that was completely foreign to me. And so some of the discovery of talents that we had was, and to circle back on soft skill development, we had leaders step up. Each of the hackathon projects was owned by an employee, and that employee was responsible for recruiting teammates, and they were responsible for developing requirements and organizing the team during the event of the hackathon, and also making sure that the delivery was satisfactory, communicating to the company what the project was and what their successes were and their challenges were. The second thing that I want to really stood out to me was collaboration. We had people from all across departments working together, and in fact, one of our most diverse teams was a mixture of QA, HR, fitness, marketing, and accounting. So we had we had 5 different departments come together just organically and work together on a project. So that was amazing. This cross-team communication, people were communicating together. They were discovering new talents that they didn't realize that they had, because we had cross-team collaboration. And then other things that we had were, on my team specifically, I realized people had talents that they were just hiding from us. For example, Doug, our digital producer, he typically works on videos, and you'll see a lot of the comics that he makes for the Joda comics. I had no idea that he had front-end JavaScript development experience. And so when he was put on my team, he just came in and he crushed it with the front end of our mobile app. And the other thing that I noticed on my team too was Heather, our marketing communications specialist. She came up with the UI and UX for our design. And again, I knew that she had experience, some design experience, but I didn't know that she had actual user experience on an application level. And then we also had Tim, our QA developer. He came in, and he was the one that was the only developer on the internal systems or internal web project. He came in with 0 experience of WordPress and really not really much web development experience at all. And he had a fully functional prototype of our internal web up in less than a day. And so those are some of the skills that I was just blown away. And I could go on, but again, we're pretty limited on time here, so I'll cut it short. But that's just an example of what are the benefits that we had, both as a company and as individuals. But the most important thing was we all had fun. Everyone at the hackathon had a great time. It was a huge learning experience for everyone. One of the most important things, though, was it reignited our passion and our creative drive as a company. The hackathon gave us, us being the employees, an outlet for creativity and an outlet for innovation. And everyone wants more. After the hackathon was over, I had Bill come up to me, I had, Roger come up to me, Roseanne. Everyone was like, when is the next hackathon? Because it was such a great experience. And I just want to thank you so much, Jacklin, for doing all the effort you had to put that together. And that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you.
Okay, so this is a slide with a lot of things you can do. My personal favorite is a book club, especially since in our office at least, it's once a month Bill is giving you a new book to read. So might as well recycle those and make a book club. One other one to call out though would be online training classes, because we obviously have videos and stuff available through Synergex, but there's so many other things you can learn in the world as well. And you heard one of these mentioned, Pluralsight is what we use internally for a lot of training. I've personally used Coursera and Codecademy, though I know most real developers say that Codecademy is too basic, so that's okay. We've talked a couple times about communication, but I really don't think I could stress that enough. Even if you're in a really small company, you might think everyone knows everything, what's available to them. They probably don't, or maybe they heard it and they need to hear it 5 more times before they do, so communicate. Something I didn't do enough in the beginning was get employee input. I've done a pretty decent job about getting their feedback after the fact, but if you get their input up front, it'll be a lot easier on you. Also, if you have someone that's in charge of doing training and things like that, my advice to them would be make sure to plan your training so they align with management's goals. It's a lot easier to get things moving that way. And I've talked a couple times about learning culture. I really recommend really making it part of your culture, because that's where you're going to see the biggest impact. If you just have training programs and people know about them, that's great. But if they feel like this is important to everyone, I can go learn at any point of the day and figure something out, that's where you're really going to see the most benefit. Measure results, which I'm going to throw up my hack-a-thon Net Promoter Score. We got an 86 for the first time, so as Bill mentioned, anything above 0 is great, so this is really, really good. But yes, trying to reach that point where you can actually measure if like your attrition is going down would be awesome. But measure whatever way you can until then, and figuring out how to make your program better, because there's always room for improvement. And look for learning in everyday opportunities. So if you're a customer service rep and a call goes really well or it goes really badly, invite one of the other customer service reps over and talk them through what worked or what didn't. That is an everyday learning opportunity, and I think those get recognized a lot more when you have that culture of learning. But try to be thinking about like, oh, there's like a junior developer and I just ran into this problem, I should just bring them over right now and teach them about it, so that then they have that knowledge as well. And for us, we have remote employees, and I'm terrified of GoToMeeting. I seem to always mess it up. It's the simplest thing, and I just, so I've been trying to get over that fear to include them so they feel like they're part of the team, because they are part of the team, and it's really important for them to get training too. So don't forget about them. Try and figure out how to incorporate them. We definitely keep improving on how we add them integrate them into our learning opportunities. And I started out with just recording things and sending it to them. Now, we actually invite them into the meeting and have a camera most of the time, so don't forget about those guys. And finally, we're here to support you. We can do it in so many ways, but obviously if you're just starting up a program and you've already got some skills gaps, PSG is available to help you fill those in. We already have some training classes like the Language Essentials class, and we're always willing to tweak things around to be right for whatever your situation is. And I'm available to try and help out with YouTube playlists or send you cheat sheets, or if you're just like, hey, I don't know where stuff on this topic is, you can reach out to your account manager and they'll come to me, or reach out to me directly and we'll try and help. But the bottom line is, if this is something you feel like it is important for your company to do, we want to be there to help you. So, do you have any questions?
How does Synergex handle weak signals to try and invoke change in the company? Is there a way to get that type of stuff to the top?
I do a lot of informal talking to different groups of people, because sometimes they don't feel comfortable submitting a survey, even if it's anonymous, or really just putting something down in writing in an email or something like that. Actually, after the hackathon, I met with every team individually, and some people would ask to talk privately, or I try and seek out people that I had this feeling they had opinions, and would try and get that feedback, and I relate it anonymously, whatever was appropriate, to the management team, and I was kind of that champion. So I think if you have someone in your organization that can go out there and just try and have very low pressure discussions with people to figure out what they need, and that if you have someone that does feel comfortable bringing it up, that's great. If you don't have someone that feels comfortable bringing it to management's attention, I don't know how you're going to be able to move forward. So there's got to be someone that you can find to reach out to if you're that person that feels like there needs to be a change, or thinks there might need to be a change.
Excellent. Employees only reluctantly participate in company learning offerings because they are, quote, boring and irrelevant, unquote. How do we show value?
I've definitely had people say, well, I'm not interested in this topic, so I'm not going to attend. And I usually follow up with, well, what would interest you? And that's what I said, like getting input ahead of time might save you those pain points. I know oftentimes people say they'd be interested in something and then the moment comes and they're not there, and that's really frustrating. But if you get their buy-in ahead of time, that's great. Also, maybe if the problem is that you don't have super great speakers, then maybe send them out to get some training. It might take a couple of times going to public speaking classes to get them really great and not boring, but that might also be helpful.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Jacklin Garcia, everyone.